everyone. Thanks for joining us today. A very good afternoon to everyone. So here we have our final Peers Anyone Roadshow for Smart Port Challenge 2023, also known as SPC. So during today's roadshow, you will hear from our corporate sponsors who have contributed to innovation opportunities towards this year's Smart Port Challenge. So my name is Jalene and I'm a program manager at Peers Anyone, and I'll be the moderator for today. So in case you're not familiar with SPC, it's a flagship event of Peers Anyone, which stands for Port Innovation Ecosystem Reimagined and Blocks Anyone. And it's a program which is co-founded by MPA, which is the Port Authority in Singapore, as well as NUS Enterprise, which is the commercialization arm in the university. So something that we really look for in Peers Anyone is the R, the reimagine. So don't worry if you're not in the maritime space yet. This program will help you see whether, Singapore's maritime space is for you and for your technology. So this year, we have 13 innovation opportunities which are championed and supported by more than 20 maritime corporates. So for this roadshow, you will hear more about the innovation opportunity, and the innovation opportunity is Voyage Optimisation. How can we better enable interconnectivity and interoperability between ships and port systems? So before we kick it off, I would like to show a video by the Acting Minister of Transport, Mr. Chee Hong Tat. So could we have the video on screen, please?
Hi everyone, I'm happy to join you today to share about the Smart Port Challenge, Peers 71's flagship initiative. Over the years, the challenge has catalyzed many maritime innovations, enhancing Singapore's standing as a leading global maritime technology hub. This year's innovation statements cover three important focus areas for maritime Singapore. First, sustainability to promote the use of green and clean energy and technology. Second, digital transformation to drive efficiency and transparency throughout the supply chain. And third, innovative solutions to enhance the safety and efficiency of port and ship operations. Peers 71 serves as a launchpad for maritime startups to expand their networks, forge partnerships across borders. Over the past few years, the maritime industry and investors have put in $50 million into Peers 71 startups, supporting their expansion in Singapore and overseas. Our Peers 71 alumni have not only raised significant capital, but have also made their mark globally. I'm encouraged to see the growth and success of our Peers 71 alumni as they expand operations and scale up their product offerings. We are proud of their achievements, the value they bring to the industry. Our startup community has taken the initiative to form the Peers 71 Circle to commemorate Peers 71's 5th anniversary. The Peers 71 Circle is an alumni club where members can remain connected wherever they are in the world. The club will also allow members to use their expertise and experiences to benefit future cohorts and to create a thriving startup community for the maritime industry. If you are an aspiring entrepreneur or maritime startup in Singapore, the Smart Port Challenge 2023 awaits you. Come join us to solve the most pressing challenges facing the maritime industry and be part of this exciting journey to shape the future of maritime Singapore.
So let's get right to the innovation opportunity. So before that, I would like to invite Jessica, Heyman, as well as Captain Rohit to introduce yourselves and what you do as well. Maybe we could start with Heyman.
Very good. Thank you very much, Jane, and hello everyone. So my name is Haimon. I lead the corporate venture capital arm of the Schulte Group called Innoport, one of the sponsors of the statement. So a bit of background to the Schulte Group. There's a 135-year-old German shipping company with core business in ship owning and ship management. We own a fleet of nearly 100 vessels and manage over 650 vessels worldwide, technical and crew management. And over the last decades, I've also built up a broad portfolio of service companies within the group, aiding the ship management side of things. So these include, for example, launchboat company in Singapore, port agency operating worldwide, ship supplies and warehousing, and a lot of services. around that. So for us, everything related to the port ecosystem on top of the ship management is also very important to aid those parts of the group. We also have a large software company within the group called Mary Apps that has developed over the last 15 years a fully integrated ship management ERP software suite, which is also deployed across the group and other shipping companies. And apart from that side of the digitalization, we also work very closely with startups through Innoport by investing in them and trying to bridge the gap to the corporate side to further innovation. So this is what we do within the group. We're happy to co-sponsor this, and I will let Jessica briefly let you dive into the challenge statement.
Yeah. Before I give some context to you, Captain Rohit, do you want to briefly introduce yourself first?
Okay. Okay. I'm Rohit Shekhar. I'm nautical manager at Fleet Performance Center. Yeah, and I'm looking at the operational aspect at Fleet Monitoring Center. It is basically a subsidiary or of Fleet Performance Center, and we are in the business of decarbonizing or providing solutions to our owners and in certain cases to the charters for providing solutions related to this. So just in time is one of the aspect of it, and we want to very much see the innovative ideas that people have in order to solve this. It is one of the most complicated challenge that marine industry is facing, and it will need a humongous amount of collaboration from the various stakeholders. So I'm very keen to know what all the solutions people have or what all they have thought of, because we have been trying to crack it. And to be very honest, it will be far more challenging than implementing a green corridor. So I'm looking forward to it.
Jessica?
And hi everyone, I'm Jessica. I'm an investment analyst in Innoport, so working alongside Heyman. Okay, then I'll just go straight to give some context on our challenge statement. So normally vessel estimated time of arrival is uncertain. So even though vessel, they have to submit their ETAs in advance to the ports, sometimes the estimation is too optimistic and is often subjected to amendments, adjustments. And also once the vessel arrives at the port, they normally require nautical technical services like marine pilotage. So only once these services are available, they can enter the port. But if it's not available, then they have to stay outside the port. They have to be drifting or they anchor outside the port. And this is often also subjected to weather change, and stakeholders often need to coordinate all these changes in a short period of time. So the problem here is that the schedule of vessel and the availability of berth at the port is not available in real time. And then often vessels, they race to the ports at a speed that's higher than needed. So this leads to inefficiencies like the wastage of fuel, and they also add extra emissions. And sometimes vessels, they arrive at the port, but then the berth is not available. So for the vessels, this leads to idle time and then lost revenues. All these have a tremendous impact on the carbon index indicator, which leads to higher carbon emissions. So what we are looking for is actually how to improve the communication or like improve real-time information sharing between ship, port, and the different stakeholders. Yeah, this is a general brief context of it.
Thanks so much, Jessica, for sharing a little bit more. Just want to encourage our attendees today. If any questions, do fill them in the Q&A portion, and we will get to them as well. So maybe to kick it off, I'd like to ask, what are some of the solutions that maybe BSM or Innoport has tried, or some of the solutions that you know is in the industry, as well as some of the areas that these solutions could be improved upon? Maybe Captain Rohit would like to start.
Okay, you see, we have worked with certain service providers in this field, like Port Exchange, who have been trying to solve this challenge. So a couple of things, you see, there are, if I have to break it down, there are a couple of challenges that are there, some which can be mitigated, some which can't. Let's say, why will there be a port delay? apart from the obvious that there is no timely relay of information from the terminal to the vessel. But apart from that, what is it that causes port disruptions? One is, let's say, some incident happened and some stevedore got hurt during the process of a vessel berthing or unberthing, which has led to a strike, and the port has closed. Now, this is a very nothing can plan. You cannot plan for this. It is something that happened out of a blue and has just blown out of proportion. Nobody will have an exact idea of how long the strike will last. So it is very difficult to then find out a solution for it. This is one of, I'm just giving an example to elaborate more, to explain it in a better way. So in this case, the only thing by which you can provide a solution is that whenever an update is available, you should be able to absorb that update and rework your network, especially if, let's say, for a liner, that, what are the ships that I'll prioritize, which are the vessels, which, let's say, where I can cancel this port of call. Let's say it happened in Singapore. Can I look at other options? Or can I just change the port rotation where I'll have limited restores? I go to that port and on my return, I call this. So basically, you relook at the network. But the driving idea will be timely relay of information. This is where we find that there is scope of improvement. Then the second challenge, more solvable, is that ports get closed after a certain threshold of weather is reached. Let's say, for example, when we're doing this pilot, we were working with certain ports in the Caribbean, and they had let's say, for example, they have a threshold of 25 knots. We can look into the port data, and then we can try to ascertain or set out warnings that in case in the next 48 or 72 or 96 hours, the threshold is breached as per the weather prognosis, then an automatic alert should come, and then I should be able to notify the vessel. This is something that we were working to develop. The thing that happens is, let's say, the system worked in toto. There are challenges with port weather because it is a lot more complicated than normal sea weather, and because of the topography and other things that has to be considered. So that itself is a challenge. Once you solve that challenge, then the other issue that comes about is that how reliable are they? Let's say in weather, now with the latest models, we can rely on, let's say, 48 to 96, about 48 hours data you can rely on. 90 to 95% accurate. As you go further down, let's say 96 hours or 120 hours prognosis, you have to be little careful and you have to take it with a pinch of salt. That kind of accuracy has not yet come to port data. But let's say it is just 24 hours. Next 24 hours, you're expecting the thresholds to be breached. Then, even though I have the warning that has come, just to make it simple, if let's say vessel is calling a port in Caribbean at let's say Veracruz, my vessel's ETA is tomorrow, 22nd. My weather system says that on 22nd at 7 o'clock in the morning, we are expecting wind of 30 to 35 knots. We know for a fact that the port cannot carry out, let's say, operations, because after 25 knots, they suspend all gantry operations. I relay this to my vessel. My vessel will go back that, we are looking at likely this, and we involve our agent. The agent takes this information, walks to the harbor master and says that I think that tomorrow there will be a port closure. The agent, the harbor master, usually does not take a call. He says that we will wait and watch. And let's say you will have the port closure once the wind actually exceeds 30 knots. So even basis the prognosis, although there was a prognosis and things could have been planned a little better, you still see that the terminal not taking that proactive step because the prognosis could be wrong. So that silo thinking that is there, these all become a challenge. So the ones which were the viable options where we could act, we were trying to do it. And the other thing that we did with one of this was to have a very transparent set, that a very transparent sharing of data. You create sort of a hub where everybody reports, especially liners. You see, the just-in-time is easy to implement on liner vessels than on tramping vessels. So they tried, but sharing data is still a challenge. People are not very forthright, or they're not very forthcoming. They're reluctant, and that slows down the whole thing. So these are a couple of things that we have tried in the past, and I would not say that they failed, but we realized that we could do a lot more. So the key word for this process to succeed is collaboration. Unless we don't collaborate and come together, it just won't work.
Yeah, maybe to add to that, it's really a problem, quite often not a problem to just have a technical solution that technically works, but to understand the depth of the industry and how many stakeholders are involved in all of the processes. Because here we have the ship manager and the charterer, we've got the port, the terminal, the agents, the pilots. Everybody has also different interests and are thus sometimes reluctant to share the data, as Captain Rohit just mentioned. So this is something that anyone tackling this challenge will need to very deeply study to understand how the dynamics of the ecosystems work before we can actually introduce something. Because there have been a few attempts, of course, in doing that, and it will be, we will see more and more incremental changes. However, the one issue why it's quite pressing is that, as Jessica mentioned, a lot of vessels just race to each port and just wait until they go, and the fuel consumption increases not linear but exponential when you go to sort of the last top 10% of the of RPM. So if you say we increase to full speed, right? If we would reduce by 10%, because we know we could delay by a little bit, right? If we can reduce 10% of the speed, we can probably reduce fuel by 20%, right? Because that last 10% speed costs you an extraordinary amount of fuel. So these are things that will help us in the decarbonization process, because we should not only look at obviously all the new fuels and how we decarbonize the fuel from new engines, but also how can we decarbonize on an operational level and with the existing fleet. This is why challenge statements like these are so important.
Thanks, Heyman, as well as Captain Rohit, for sharing. I think we have two questions, so maybe we'll answer them first. So the first question is, are there best practices or processes in certain ports on ship-port interconnectivity and interoperability around the world that other ports could aspire to have? Anyone want to answer this question?
Please, sir.
I'm not aware of the best practices because I'm not close enough to the actual ship operation. So, Captain Rohit, if you might.
Yes. You see, there are. You see, if there are certain ports which are very, very efficient. There are some good practices that can be shared. I'll just give an example of my previous organization, which used to run the APMT. Okay, and if you see certain ports in India, just for example, if you see Mundra and if you see JNPT, and if you compare it with one of the ports in South, you will see that just by implementing new practices, they have just changed the whole scenario. Like, how do we optimize? And there is tremendous scope of port optimization, which is not being followed across. During my sailing time, I used to come to Singapore, which is one of the most efficient ports that I know in Asia. And I would go and discharge in Africa. So there we would see that, how things could be improved and planned better. Because in port management, you just have to find out, or you just have to have software which help you in doing it. it is not only the hardware that, number of gantries or this that you put on the pier. How do you optimize the usage? How do you put in the sequence in which you will deploy? And how do you ensure timely relay of information? One vessel went out, how do you seamlessly transfer that gantry onto the other asset that you have at pier? These are the things that we would see at Singapore, and we would find it missing in the African continent. So yes, there is a lot of best practices that are there that can be shared between, let's say, terminals, and it would bear a lot of it would bear fruits. We have seen it with ports in Indian coast, where they were operationally not very effective. There was a lot of delay. They managed to reduce the turnaround time of a vessel, I think, from 40 to 26 point something. So that's a drastic improvement just by innovating, automating, and digitalizing. That is what turned around those ports. So we have seen success stories, and it does happen.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing, Captain Rohit. I hope that answers your question. So do keep the questions coming. It's a good opportunity to hear from the corporates on the call today. So the second question has two parts. So let's answer the first one first. So the first part is, what is your experience on the reliability of ocean current forecast and their effect on the ETA? Captain Rohit, I think this question sounds like it's for you.
Okay. Now, okay. I would say that one area where we find that there is tremendous scope of improvement is in ocean currents. We are getting there. Just to give you a perspective, when I started sailing as an officer, the granularity of the data that we had was 2.5 degrees. That means the world, because it is a sphere, so you can consider 360 degrees. So the granularity of data was 2.5 degrees. So for thousands of miles, I had one spot weather. That is the granularity with which we started working for the currents. Now, there are weather service providers which can come up to 0.125 degree of granularity for weather, for currents. So things are improving, but to be very honest, ocean currents initially were very difficult to predict, a very expensive process, because you will have to have, how should I say, you have to have these ODAS or other means to collect this information and correctly overlay on your charts. But what we see now with new vendors in the market, they are working with these small satellites which can do this job and ensure global coverage. Then there are others in the market who have got their own small buoys. Very specifically, they go around putting these buoys in the main traffic lanes on the globe, and they collect and relay this data. So now I would say their reliability is improving from when I started to what I see now, and they have an effect. I would say that you have to always calibrate when we say about effect on ETA. You have to always take that into account, that okay, if I'm going and I'm not expecting any current and there is a certain speed loss that I was not anticipating, no charts are telling me that there should be a current, then I would just compensate for it. So ETA generally would not get compromised because of weather, and because you act on it relatively fast. And where there are very strong currents, like let's say the Agulhas near the African coast, or let's say near the Japanese coast, Kamchatka, and all these areas, which can actually make a difference because they are really, really strong, there you are aware. And in other areas, it does not hamper me or the vessel to a degree where I'll miss an ETA. Yeah, I hope I've answered the question.
Yeah, thanks, Captain.
Yeah.
There's also part B, which also seems like it's for you. So part B is, what is the most important cost factor concerning GIT for shipping company? Is it mainly extra fuel consumed when accelerating, extra berthing, slash logistic penalties if late, or port closed, etc.? Yeah.
Okay. What is the main cost factor? Okay. You see, the main, if I have to pick up that, what would be the most important one? If it would be one, it would be cost implication coming out of the extra fuel consumption, or the loss of the loss of potential, I would say. The potential saving that I had, just as Haman was saying during this, that the consumption graph is not linear. It is almost like you can see that more or less linear, stays linear, keeps on going upwards, and then it just takes off. So when I go, if I'm doing 18 knots, for a, let's say, I give an example of a container ship, maybe I would be consuming close to 100 tons. But just to go from 18 knots to, let's say, 19.5, it's just 1.5 knots more. My consumption would go from 100 to 140, which is not at all proportional. I should not be consuming 40 tons more and gaining only 1.5 tons, but that is how it is. So when you go on higher revs, you will consume a lot more. And if, let's say, I go steaming, just to give you an example, again, Singapore to West Africa, I go steaming at full speed, burning thousands of tons on a container vessel and arriving and staying at anchor for, let's say, 72 hours. When you look back and do a calculation, if I was aware that I was going to stay at anchor for 3 days, my average required speed would have dropped to maybe 15 or 16 knots when I ended up doing a 19.5 knots voyage. And when you will see the consumption between a 15 knots voyage and a 19.5 knots voyage, the savings potential will be humongous. It is not only for the cost, but also now with the new developments that are coming about. Just to give you an example of EU ETS. Now the thing is, when you will end up paying for your fuel twice, once when you buy it and once when you burn it, because now people are, now the EU is working on this, that emitter pays. If you're polluting, you have to pay. So they will charge you, let's say, for every ton of fuel that you burn, the emission that you cause will be about 3 tons. This is just a very generic figure that I have taken. It depends on the type of the fuel, the LCV, and a lot of other factors. But just for discussion, 1 ton of fuel will emit about 3 tons of CO2. So for every ton of CO2 that you will emit, you will pay 1 ETS. So it has very far-reaching consequence. So if you will ask me, what is the most important cost factor, it would be fuel. I hope I was able to explain why I have chosen, what was the rationale behind choosing this.
Okay, thanks, Captain. I hope it answered your question, Evangelist. If you have any clarifications, do put them in the Q&A function. So the next question is, what more do you look for in cybersecurity and cyber readiness so that you have an undisrupted ship-port interconnectivity? Could this be a potential space that you're looking at as well?
Yeah. Can I answer this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can answer it.
Yeah. You see, that is where I see the maximum scope. The cybersecurity measures are the ones, because at the moment, you see, one of the solutions that, if you ask me that, how would I solve this problem of JIT? It has to be, you will have to come up with a system which is simple in the sense that and standardized. You like how we have in AIS, you get the information that you require from a vessel from our AIS. The similar thing will have to be implemented ashore. It has to be a standard format. These are the information which has to be relayed, and then you have to amalgamate these two. information from the vessel, information from the terminal, put it across and amalgamate it, and then make a priority list. The moment you play with data, cybersecurity is critical. You cannot, you will have to prioritize cybersecurity to safeguard the data exchange that is happening. And that is, I feel that it will be a key factor, one of the key factors for the success of this. Because data exchange, even if let's say tomorrow everybody agrees, you have to ensure data security. Without it, nobody will share data with you. So yes, it is how I see, very important.
Actually, I got a whole lot of questions today. So just wondering, what are some of the challenges or barriers, perhaps, to implementing cybersecurity in this space? Maybe, yeah, some of the challenges, some of the barriers that they might face. I think it'd be great to let them know so that when they're coming up with the solution, like, hey, I did something I should look out for.
Okay, for in terms of cybersecurity, you're asking, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, you were asking in terms of cybersecurity, right? That
Yeah,
what are so I would say that one is data protection, and the other one is you will have to cater to. You see, when we are talking about whosoever designs the solution will have to cater to two things: processing humongous amount of data. We are talking about marine industry. If you just go on, let's say, any open platform that is there where you can track the AIS of the vessel, you will see the amount of ship that is there. Just Google Singapore and you will see the amount of ships that are there. Okay, it's one of the busiest ports that we have in Southeast Asia. Can you imagine that much of data coming from each and every vessel? And then you have different terminals in Singapore. You have to process that volume of data, do it fast, ensure cybersecurity of that data, marry that data with the data that the Singapore PSA shares with you for the different terminals that it has, for the different pallet station, because as they mentioned, it will not be only vessel and the terminal. You will have to bring in data from the vessel, from the terminal, from the pallet, because depending on where the vessel is calling Alpha Bravo Charlie boarding area, if you are going to have some suppliers, like let's say you are having a bunkering operation, or you have some ship standards supplying provision of this, you have some crew change. So these are just the one that I told you off the hat. There are many stakeholders, minimum 6 or 7, from which you will have to gather data, process it, then relay it. Because it will not only be that you have to gather this, you also have to send it out to all the parties, that this is what the most, this is the thing that that looks most optimal. And the only person, if a person knows, the only thing that can solve this, or the way I see it, is they will have to deploy some kind of an AI and machine learning. That's the only viable thing that I see, because the volumes are so high that it just can't be done any other ways. This is my take. Yeah, this is my personal take.
Even Jessica, do you have anything to add for this question? Okay, we have another question. The next question is, given that the issue is if the berth is available when you get there, and it seems like the port is in charge of allocating the berth, what information is required from the port operator, and why do you think it is not being shared currently? Sounds like your question.
Yeah, okay. I was just reading the questions just to make sure that I got it right.
Yeah.
You see, if the berth is available, and all I need from him is at the moment, what happens is there is some terminal. What the terminal does is they will have a plan in place. Like you give your availability, or when we design a network, we say that, okay, we will call it these port rotation we will call it this time, and that is decided basis on, let's say, when the berths are available for you. You go and take your slots. You book your slots that, I'll have one of my vessels coming at this time, so I need a slot at this time. This is the dimension, because they will have to take into account where you want to, what is the type of the vessel. So that will decide which terminal you'll go to. What is the volumes that you are likely to bring at that time? Like, let's say I have 1,000 to discharge and 2,000 to load container vessel. So they will do an asset allocation that I have got 10 or 12 hours for you to stay, and then they will give an asset allocation, and basis that they will bring you in and bring you out. So if let's say such a situation is there, I see no reason. What information do you need from the port operator? I would. They usually will relay unless the only reason why I can see this, or something that happens now, I would not say happens, or things that I have seen in the past, was certain carriers were given preference over others, and I would not delve too much into why it was happening, but it happens. It is a reality that you are in good books. It does not happen so much here, but in certain countries, if you're in good books with certain people, you will get preference over others. So if a port is functioning as it should, this thing should not happen. The only they will relate to your agent, the agent will relate to the vessel, and you will come and berth. But yes, I would not say that I have not seen it. There has been an instance when I was I arrived at Colombo and I was asked to stay at anchor, and I saw one of the other couriers come and just go right in. I was like, why am I not being allotted a berth? So, but these are wrong practices. And if you ask me, I would say that the smartest way to solve this is just ensure data transparency. All this will stop automatically. Put it out in one place. And once it is out, then it is first come, first serve. Whosoever came in first, reported first, gets the best berth first. And because it is transparently available, let's say on net, nobody, no human interference, nothing, this all gets solved.
I think one has a follow-up question. It's why do you think the port is not releasing the data now?
They're worried about, let's say, two things. One is they are worried about data theft. That is one. They don't want to give it to the service providers. If it is in relation to this, that they're not sure about whether you will ensure their data protection. And if it is in relation to the first question that you asked, that is because first, they don't have the means, that there is no software. Nobody has made something where they can go and put it now that, okay, I'll share. There are many terminals which give you insight into this. Some of it also has to do with that it cannot be out in the open. That, this is, I'll put it out on the net. You will have to have certain controlled access. And a lot of terminals, at least the developed ones, they allow you. You can see that, how when I'm fourth or fifth in this list. And this is the time when I'll go. There are ports which will tell you that you will go to this berth at this time after departure of this. And then there are certain ports which just don't tell you anything. It is very opaque, especially in Africa. So you just go there and you're waiting. You don't know when your ETA will be. The only person who will inform you is your agent, because otherwise the port is just opaque. And that has to do something with what I mentioned earlier: vested interest, silo thinking, prioritization, favoritism. This is what drives it to a certain extent.
Thank you so much for sharing, Captain Rohit. Are there any other questions from the audience? Okay, there is one. In your opinion, In order to achieve transparency and collaboration more efficiently, will this require a behavioral change or an improvement to current technology? If so, how long do you think it will take Maritime to adopt or to change? I think Heyman would like to go first.
That's yes, similarly to what I said earlier. There are, of course, we need to have, of course, the technology in place and the means of collaboration and the security that the stakeholders feel comfortable exchanging data and connecting the systems that we need to achieve what Captain Rohit explained. So we do need that. Not all of that is in place yet. So we do need technology development. There's no question about that. However, from my experience, it is the more challenging part. How do we actually get all the stakeholders on board to collaborate and to cooperate in this challenge, right? So it needs to really anyone trying to tackle this challenge needs to take both of that into account, right? So that the technology needs to interlink with the change management of things, how we get people the buy-in. How long it will take? I think that's a tough question to answer. But maritime is a conservative industry. We have stakeholders that some of them have probably also lesser interest to become transparent because they basically earn their living off the intransparency of the ecosystem. So there will always people objecting to whatever we try to introduce. And there we also, I think, need the regulators push, and we've seen obviously in Singapore very good examples of how this can be furthered in ports like Rotterdam also as well. But I think it's, well, I wouldn't dare to make a prognosis of how long it will take, but Captain Rohit, I'll hand over to you if you want to share your thoughts on that.
No, here you're very right. You see, very difficult to make a prognosis. We are slow. You know, marine industry takes its own sweet time to do it. And transparency and collaboration, if you ask me, in order to achieve this, it will require a behavioral change. You can only do it two ways. You need that carrot and stick. So in simplest of terms, you have to incentivize, which is not there at the moment. There is nothing incentivizing me to do it. And the stick is you have to penalize. Now the CII or the other things which are there, one of the measures which are coming, once you find that there is more to it from the IMO or from the signatory states, you will see a gradual change. So at the moment, none of them is there. Neither the incentivizing, wherein I pay that, okay, if let's say you are doing this, I'll reduce your port dues, or, I'll give you a preferential treatment because you are more, you have put in efforts towards the conservation of the environment. I'll give you preferential treatment. Or if you don't do, I'll give you, you will have to pay fine or penalty. Nothing like this is there. These are the two. Eventually, this will happen. This is how it works. That they will incentivize it, and then they will put penalties in place. But timeline, no, very difficult to. It will take time. It will take time.
Thank you, Heyman and Captain Rohit, as well as Jessica, for sharing throughout this session. So to end off the session, I just wanted to ask, what is one takeaway that you want people to remember from this session? One main takeaway. I know we covered many, many things. So just one thing you would like them to take away.
From my end, I would say the key takeaway should be that the understanding of the different stakeholders involved in the process is key to be able to come up with a technology solution that tackles the statement, because this is what I found in a lot of challenges and a lot of startups also that we invest in, that this is sometimes hindering the success because the intricacies of the maritime industry are not fully understood, and this is absolutely crucial for a successful solution in this space. It's not the technology alone. So this is maybe from my end.
Actually, I do realize we have one more question, so maybe we can take that. Has a final question before we close. So the question is, what innovative technologies can startups bring to enhance the communication and data exchange between ship and port systems? What role can startups play in developing and implementing a centralized port community system to streamline information sharing among stakeholders? Yeah.
Him or you?
Yeah, I mean that there have been a few examples that Captain Hoyne also mentioned of trying to build platforms like that, but none of them yet seem to capture all the aspects. But what innovative technologies? I mean, we obviously mentioned the machine learning was mentioned, and obviously all the different aspects of cybersecurity were mentioned. We are also here because we haven't seen a adequate solution to the whole problem yet, and this is why we're reaching out also to other people in the space and also from the startup space to see what other ideas can be brought to the table. We think it's quite important that, because we obviously know our industry very well. We operate in it for a very long time, and in various capacities. But sometimes that sort of out of the box thinking, the look from the outside, this is what we value a lot, and this is why we work with startups so closely, because we think it is something that can add value if you actually take a fresh look at things and come up with ideas. So I don't want to actually come up with the ideas here of what innovative technologies will bring to the table, but rather would leave that to the participant in the call or the startups who want to take up this challenge statement.
Thanks for sharing, Heyman. Captain Rohit, you'd like to add? Oh, yeah, all good.
Yeah, just one thing that I would say that the innovative whenever you are developing something on this, what I would suggest is, for it to succeed, start with liner vessels, because it is easier to implement it on liner vessels, test it, try it, and then scale it up. If you can pull it off on a liner, then it is still doable. And work with I would say private ports. If let's say you have to try it with private ports, one in Asia, one in Europe, because I would do it, let's say, with Singapore and Rotterdam. Very advanced ports, uses the best of technology. Work with that, see how it can be scaled, and then once it is a working model, then you try and address the problems that you will have, let's say, in other countries or in other regions. This is how I would have approached this. People have tried it, as I said in the beginning, implementing a green corridor would be a lot simpler than JIT. It is extremely challenging. But then with the younger generation, they can do anything. As I was saying, we are from the industry, we know what our problems are, but it is sometimes just these young bright guys who can come up with an idea and you think, oh, I did not think of it earlier, and I'm sure one of them will crack it.
So thank you everyone for answering all the questions as well. So for startups who are on this call or who will be watching this recording, we encourage you to put forth your proposals and you get the opportunity to work with stakeholders such as BSM and Innoport, and you get the time to speak to them as well. So could I have the slides on screen, please? So I think I just wanted to remind everyone that applications for SmartPod Challenge closed on 31st July. So if you haven't put in your application yet, do take note of the date. You can scan the QR code to submit your entries. If you'd like to learn more about today's innovation opportunities or are interested in the other innovation opportunities, do scan the QR code on the left. So I also like to invite you to join us on our LinkedIn page as well as our mailing list, where we do keep our community updated on the latest developments from our startups as well as the industry. So once again, I'd like to thank all our panelists as well as attendees for joining us today for our final roadshow for SmartPod Challenge 2023. And I wish everyone a good Friday and a good weekend ahead. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.